you doing? Good. You're having fun in midterms? Yeah? Having a blast, huh? Again, I'm Katie Pope. I'm your TA. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about today is the common mistakes that you guys made on the previous paper. It's important that we kind of touch on this real quickly because your final paper of the semester, you're going to be doing something similar, right, in groups? We're going to be evaluating a company, okay? So, a couple of things that I found are the most common areas where you guys went awry, okay? The first thing is you didn't integrate and specifically cite OB concepts from your book, okay? You needed to have integrated that so that your analysis was synthesized with the Amazon case, okay? That was really, really important because what you're supposed to be doing is taking what you're learning in here and applying it to your own original evaluation of the company, okay? So if I didn't see things like personal factors or team, what it was, group level, individual level, employee attitudes, like, and here's the thing: if you actually integrated it and then you cited your textbook, that's a surefire sign that you are actually using OB concepts. Okay, so that's really important. You want to make sure you have 3 of those. Okay, is that the same criteria?
The paper's 5 outside references, 5 OB topics.
Okay, so it's going to increase in the final paper.
Yes, because
okay.
it's a group paper, and it also includes their own scenario of whatever company they've worked at. Yeah.
Okay, and the second most common issue I found is source integration. And we went over this in the previous writing presentation, that when you make a claim, okay, and you bring in a source to sort of back up that claim, you need to have that third and final element where you synthesize, where you comment on the relationship between your original claim or point and the source material. How do they relate, okay? A number of you guys kind of just dropped evidence in without contextualizing it within the paragraph. Now, to be fair, it's a difficult skill to master, okay? So it takes time and it takes practice. So don't like beat yourself up, you know, a lot. Just make note of that. If you go into the previous writing presentation, you can find that formula or that structure I gave you for integrating source material into your document. Okay, so be mindful of that and pay attention to that. Okay, what was the other? Those are the 2 most common things that I saw that were issues. So, any questions about that? I've graded all your papers, so you can go and review the feedback. One other thing I wanted to mention. I took off a lot of points if you gave me about 4 pages of copy, okay? The scope and the depth of the assignment requires that you at least gotten to a full 5 pages. Because what happens when I only have 4 pages of copy is your paragraphs are significantly underdeveloped. You haven't synthesized source material or OB concepts, brought in examples. And some of you guys actually did like this extra spacing between your paragraphs to try to get you to that page count. But we catch all that, okay? I don't know if that was intentional, but just saying, okay? If you go through like a checklist and you hit all the major elements, the criteria that the assignment calls for, you will get to your word count. I promise you that. Okay? Make sense?
Yes, and this next big paper, not our memo, which we're going to talk about, the persuasion piece, but the final group paper, we know you now. So we're going to hold you to a higher standard because a WI class means you're improving your writing skills. So everything Katie just talked about, we're going to be monitoring in the group paper to make sure we're not making the same mistakes. How was APA? Not bad this time around.
You guys did a pretty good job with APA this time around. There were a couple things, like make sure you have the accurate punctuation in your citation. Some of you guys left off page numbers. That's a big no-no, okay? That's not having page numbers can be seen as a plagiarism issue, okay, when you have direct quotes. So you just, be mindful of that when you come to do your final paper and when you do any other research paper for any other class. Is it blank?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have the doc right now. Any other questions about that? What?
Did you turn us off?
Yeah,
No, there you go.
Okay. All right, great. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about being persuasive in communication. Okay, I'm going to teach you some tools that's going to help you be more effective in getting people to do what you want them to do. Okay. Very important is this idea that every day we are trying to get our needs met. Okay. So every day we engage in a form of persuasion, we're just not aware of it. Okay, whether that's trying to get a French fry, the last French fry from your best friend. Okay, you're trying to get a loan from your parents. You're trying to get your boss to promote you. Okay, you're trying to get your teacher to give you an extension on your paper. Okay, every single day there are situations where you have to argue your case so that you can get your needs met and your desires fulfilled. Okay, that is just an integral part of human communication. And learning to do that well means the difference between success and failure. So, in getting which one? So, what I want to teach you guys today is how to be more strategic, more deliberate, more methodical in your writing, okay? Which in turn will help you in everyday communication, okay? Oftentimes, it's been my experience that the better you can write, the better you can speak, okay? So let's talk about the persuasiveness, the persuasion, okay? So persuasion comes from the art of rhetoric, okay? Does anybody know what rhetoric is? Anybody? A lot of people think rhetoric has got to do with politicians, right? But rhetoric really is any form of communication. It's a system of symbols we use to transmit meaning, okay? And rhetoric is often used to move people to get what you want them to do, okay? To move them to action, okay? But it's also a box of tools, okay? So you can achieve your goals in human communication. And when we look at writing in terms of rhetoric, okay, this has to do with what you choose to include, the information you choose to provide, and how you present that information. So this includes things like word choice, imagery, sentence structure, the way that you sort of demonstrate your persona, okay, your knowledge, the use of facts, statistics, okay. So, what are some ways that you can get at making your writing more persuasive? Okay. Well, there is this long historical strategy that dates back to the days of Aristotle. I don't know if any of you guys know who Aristotle is. Hopefully you do. Which are called the 3 appeals of persuasion, which are ethos, logos, and pathos. Okay, so which, if you look right here, we have the translation. Ethos is ethics. Okay, logos is logic. And pathos is emotion. And so when you write and when you talk to people, if you somehow present your own background, okay, you show them your sense of character, your moral compass, okay, show them that you're knowledgeable of the topic at hand. What you're doing is that you are increasing your ethos. You are increasing your credibility in the eyes of your audience, okay, which is going to make them want to believe you even more and do what you want them to do, okay. Logos has to do with logic, okay, appealing to your readers or your audience's need for sound judgment, okay? And you do that through facts, statistics, logical sub-arguments, and then pathos has got to do with emotion. And for me, pathos is probably one of the most important appeals of persuasion that there is, okay? Because when you can get somebody to feel how you feel, then they're more likely to be moved, okay? And that, again, this is through using imagery, powerful language to elicit emotional responses, okay? Any questions about this?
Can you guys see the screen, or do you want me to turn the lights down a little more? Is it too light for you in the back? It's fine? Okay.
Okay, so let's break these down a little bit more, okay? So like I was saying, you establish credibility in the eyes of your audience when you were able to demonstrate that you have background in this area, okay? That you have a certain set of credentials. If you guys have a degree, by proxy, just in society, you already have a level of ethos. You already have credibility. What does that say? It says you're intelligent, right? that you're project oriented, that you can set goals, right, and achieve those goals, okay? So your credentials automatically lend a certain credibility to you in the eyes of people and our society, okay? So in terms of industry, okay, so before I dive into this, what you guys are going, and I should have started with this, but what you guys are going to be doing for this next essay is you're going to be writing a persuasive memo, okay? Excuse me. And you're going to receive 3 resumes, okay? And you're going to try to convince your boss or your director or aka your teacher, okay, to hire a certain candidate over the others, okay? Does that make sense? Okay? So now that you know that, which I should have led with that, these are going to make a lot more sense, okay? So again, back to credibility, okay? By you showing that you're knowledgeable, okay, about the specific project you're working on, in this case, hiring candidates, okay, and demonstrating awareness of the standards, practices, and needs of not only the company you're working for, but the industry to which the company belongs, okay? That's going to make you more credible. That's going to make people want to believe you, okay? This also shows some understanding. This shows that you understand the company history, its current situation, and the future trajectory of that company, okay? But also, just as important, and probably one of the most important elements of your ethos is coming across professional, okay? That's actually one of the first things people look for in terms of getting them to do what you want them to do, okay? Did you show up on time, okay? Did you complete the project? Was the project polished, right? And did you adhere to the standards and practices that we typically have in our field or in our industry, okay? So that's going to be the first thing that they look for, okay? So let me give you just a quick example. When you go to apply for a job, if you've got an error in the first few sentences, they're not going to even look at anything else. They're not going to try to look at your knowledge. If they've got a stack of resumes this high, they're looking to eliminate a bunch of them, okay? So just a word of caution. That's really, really important. Professionalism, first and foremost. All right, logos, okay? Logos is relying on our audience's needs for logical connections, okay, for rationality, okay? And you do this by bringing in evidence through sub-arguments, making sensible connections between the industry standards and OB concepts and the experiences of your candidate, okay? And bringing in the values and needs and the actions of the company, okay? So that's for this particular case or this particular project. But anytime that you draw on a logical argument, you're using logos. Okay, so pathos. You wouldn't think that emotion belongs in the world of professionalism or professional practices, but we're human, and at our core, we're emotional beings. And believe it or not, if you guys go do research on the latest neuroscience, you will see that our emotional base, which amygdala, there's a part of the brain called the amygdala. Anybody familiar with that? Okay, that's part of your brain that's responsible for emotions, for that fight or flight experience. So before we make a decision, before we reason through that decision, we first feel, and then we decide. Okay, so tapping into that is really, really powerful in terms of getting other people to do what you want. Okay. You can do this through storytelling, anecdotes, little short vignettes about human potential. Okay, when you talk to people, when you write persuasively, and through subtle imagery, powerful word choice. You can, so for this project, you can elicit a sense of confidence in your boss or your director and your recommendation. You can elicit a sense of hope in them that this candidate's going to be a good fit for the company. Okay, so we're relying on motion first and foremost. Does this mean that you need to have flowery language and lots of human stories? No, because you have to consider the genre. This is a professional document, okay? You want to be subtle about it. All right, so let's look at how this is at work in the persuasive memo. And I have the persuasive essay up here because some of the other sections in the 313 class are actually doing the persuasive essay in lieu of the memo. It's the same kind of content that they're going to be generating compared to what you'll be generating, but they're going to be doing it in a different genre. Okay, but I still want to touch on a couple of these elements just to give you guys some exposure to it. So, when you are in a position with the company, okay, and you are also in that position of power to make a recommendation, to make a decision, that automatically increases your credibility, okay? You have an implied ethos. And then showing how organizational concepts relate to the needs of the job, which are going to be found in the job ad because you're going to be given a job ad for this project, and how a candidate can help meet those needs. So this establishes your knowledge and uses logic to make connections for your audiences. Okay, so again, you're using those appeals of persuasion. Okay, you're appealing to their needs for credibility and logic. So with a persuasive essay, you get everything from the left, but you can also use your own personal experience in the essay or report to strengthen your credibility. Okay, it shows that you have some experience. Okay, and doing that also institutes the human element. Okay, and then also using outside research. Okay, which demonstrates an awareness of the industry standards and changes. Okay, practices and theories. Okay, and that also increases your credibility. So let's look at how this is working here in this example. And by the way, for this memo, you guys are not required to have outside research. You are just required to have 3 OB concepts, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why I have that on the right side is because the other classes are doing outside research in their persuasive essay, okay? But not for this class. And the reason why Dr. Wood is having you write the memo is because it is one of the most universal genres used in businesses across the board. Okay, so you having practice with this is actually going to be a good experience in terms of you being able to do this later. Okay, so it's a good thing. It's practical. Okay, and the persuasive essay in the other classes is also a good thing because what the persuasive essay translates to is a white paper. I don't know, anybody familiar with what a white paper is? Okay, white paper is just another term for persuasive essay in industry, in business. Okay, so it's longer, it's more fleshed out, it has research in it. Okay, memo's just trying to establish the information and move the company to action. Okay, it's very direct, very straightforward. But so here is an example of the way ethos, logos, and pathos are in play in terms of persuasive writing. So I'm going to read this first, and then we're going to sort of dissect it and show you how I'm strategically implementing those different strategies to appeal to my audience's need for credibility, need for logic, and their emotions, okay? So, a business's success is dependent upon its team. And at our company, we consider personal factors such as employees' needs and values to be critical in team building. Mr. Baker would make an excellent managerial candidate for he has a long history of leading and empowering team members. At his previous company, Mr. Baker held monthly check-ins with all his employees, which was not a performance review per se, but a way for him to glean a sense of his employee satisfaction professionally and personally. He also incentivized his employees through non-traditional reward systems. For example, as a breeding dog owner, he once offered freely one precious golden retriever puppy to 10 of his best employees who met their annual goals. His employees report him as being a warm, memorable leader. Business scholar Dr. Julie Severs explains that a leader's success in the professional world relied in the personal. Mr. Baker's person-centered approach then can help our company meet its goals as he has powerful leadership skills. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. Okay, so the opening sentence is a business success is dependent upon its team. Okay, it shows your credibility through your knowledge of industry standards. Okay, In our company, we consider personal factors such as employees' needs and values to be critical in team building. It shows your knowledge of the company's practices. Okay, it makes you more credible in that light. The next section you can see here, Mr. Baker would make an excellent managerial candidate for he has a long history of leading and empowering team members. We've logically connected organizational concepts with the candidate's experience. What are my organizational concepts here? Personal factors, right? Or individual factors, is what it's called, right? Okay. And then we move along, we give an example. So this is relying on ethos and logos, right? We give an example, a human story, a short anecdote. You guys know what an anecdote is? What's an anecdote?
It's like a little story to help drive your point.
Yeah, so it's just a little story to help drive your point, right? So my dad used to always call me brat number 2. That's an anecdote, right? It's an example, okay? And it uses specific language choices to help elicit emotion from your audience. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So here's my example, here's the story. For example, as a breeding dog owner, he once offered freely one precious golden retriever puppy, okay, to 10 of his best employees. Okay? So, not only do we have the actual story at play, but strategically speaking, I have slowed down the uptake of the meaning in this sentence through punctuation. So let me ask you this, when I read it like this, he once offered freely one precious golden retriever puppy. Okay, what does that do for the reader or the audience? What does commas do? Yes?
I think it's trying to put emphasis on
Yes.
that it wasn't just a golden retriever, but it was
Right, you've got exactly, right? If the commas cause them to slow down, because a comma in punctuation or in writing is a pause, right? And then this M dash is what this is called, okay, which is a further pause, emphasizes that it's for puppy, okay? So we're slowing them down and getting them to focus on this image in their mind, okay? And we're invoking their emotions and making them feel something, right? Because we all love puppies, right? And believe it or not, this is actually a true story, okay? My dad, may he rest in peace, was a incredible manager at Best Buy. He was a GM for 10 years in one of the previous cities we lived in, and he actually did this. He went there, we had a golden retriever dog, and she had two litters, and as an incentive, he said, if you guys meet your goals, you'll get a free puppy, and that's worth $500 or $600. Those puppies are, but that's not what's important. The important is it appealed to their human, passionate side of themselves, right? Okay. And then we have being a warm and memorable leader. Okay, so those word choices, adjectives, also help evoke emotion. Okay, does that make sense? And then in the white paper persuasive essay, we've got the evidence. Dr. Julie Severs explains that a leader's success in the professional world rely on the personal. Okay, and Mr. Baker's person-centered approach can help our company meet its goals as he has a powerful leadership skills. So we've got the logical synthesis of the company goals with the candidate attributes. It connects to the source material before it, okay, and then it transitions to the next paragraph. So what's my next paragraph going to be about?
Powerful leadership skills.
Powerful leadership skills, exactly. Okay. Does this make sense to you guys? Does it seem like it's rocket science? Okay, I'm trying to convey to you guys how you can be deliberate in your choices in your communication. Okay. All right. A word about audience. Okay. Audience is actually the most important thing you need to consider first and foremost when trying to persuade. Okay. What are their needs? What are their values? What is their personalities like? So, for example, if a boss is really rough around the edges, maybe he's kind, but he's a little hardened, right? He's not very emotional. He needs straightforward, to the point ideas. Okay, then you're going to use a lot more facts and a lot more statistics when talking to him or writing for him, right? Your language choices are going to probably be short to the point. You're going to have short sentences. not long ones. You're not gonna use a lot of flowery language, not a lot of adjectives, and probably not a lot of human story, okay? Maybe just a little, right? But if your boss is more of a gentle breed, she or he's more compassionate, prefers the human element, okay, you might rely on storytelling a bit more, okay? Or subtle rhetorical flourishes, which is just like, adjectives, describing things in detail, painting that image in your audience's mind, okay? Does that make sense? Yeah? So, knowing your audience is crucial to achieving what you want to achieve, okay? All right, so let's talk about the structure of this memo. It's very much like your essays, okay? You're gonna have an introduction, a thesis, you're gonna have topic sentences that harken back to the thesis statement, and then you're gonna have transitions in between, okay? You wanna kind of simulate the same organization and same flow as you would in any other assignment, okay? So when you're creating your thesis, you want to connect those candidates' main attributes to what the company needs, which are evidenced in the job advertisement, right? And then align that with the company's value or the company's mission, okay? You guys know the difference between company needs and company values. What's the difference?
I'd say the values are probably what the company wants to do, and then the needs are what they need to do. Like what they need
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah,
achieve.
that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think I saw a lot of positive expressions on that. Can you give an example, like we gave the other day with the bank? Maybe to really solidify it. If I'm looking for a bank teller, what are the bank's values? Anybody? Money, they have to be accurate.
So honesty,
Integrity, accuracy,
Right.
maybe an accounting background. I mean, so they're really into non-theft things.
Right.
And then let's talk about, so that's the company values. How are you going to connect that to the candidate? What are you going to look for in the resume?
Look at their background.
You look at their background, experience, and then you connect it. That's what she's talking about. You're comparing which candidate meets the needs of the company. What does the company need?
So they'll need somebody reliable, right? They need somebody they can trust. They'll need somebody who has got accounting experience. So those are more of the actionable items that they need to fulfill in order to fulfill their company's mission or values, okay? That make sense? So here's an example that I wrote from the previous paragraph, okay? One thing to note beforehand. A lot of you guys are gonna, what is this, 5 pages? It's 1,200 words.
It's 1,200 words because a
1,200
memo
words
is
for the memo,
shorter. Yeah.
For the memo. And that gets you to 5 pages. And some of you guys are gonna be wondering, wow, how am I gonna get to 5 pages? Okay. Well, you could do that by selecting 3 or 4 of the candidate's attributes that you're gonna develop in the body paragraphs like we just went over in the previous one, but also by comparing it to the first couple of candidates, okay? That's important, okay? Because you want your director to kind of have a comprehensive view of this process in terms of who you were looking to hire, okay? So let's look at this. In comparison to our other 2 candidates, Mr. Baker's team building abilities, leadership qualities, communication skills, and innovative approach will help us increase employee retention through higher levels of job satisfaction, which will in turn reinforce a sense of family, an integral part of our company's vision. That's a thesis statement, okay?
I mean, that's a great thesis statement.
Yes, it's good.
We know what the paper's going to be about. Everything is in that
Right.
statement.
So let me ask you guys this: what are my first 2 body paragraphs going to focus on? No. Back up.
The other 2 candidates.
Yes, you have a paragraph. You think a page in your essay. A page is about 2 good-sized, flushed-out paragraphs. Okay. So if you have 2 candidates, that's 1 page right there. Okay. Maybe you say something along the lines of, this candidate had these strengths, but they were missing a couple of these other items that are really important to us. Okay. Kind of flush it out that way. And then what's going to be my next body paragraphs?
Team building
About
ability.
Mr. Baker.
Qualities.
Yes. team building abilities. The next body paragraph,
Leadership qualities,
leadership qualities.
communication skills,
And then-
innovative approach.
Okay, but here's the thing, in order to craft a really logical argument, okay, it's got that persuasive element, you've got to be able to connect those attributes, okay, to what we need. So maybe the company is trying to, maybe they're just starting off and they're trying to really build their team. Okay, maybe they're one of the things, and they're very family oriented, maybe one of the things they're looking for is long employee retention. Okay, and how do you achieve long employee retention? Okay, through higher levels of job satisfaction. Okay, the people at Best Buy didn't make a whole lot of money working for my dad, but I can tell you 80% of the employees that I met at the beginning in his tenure were still there at the end of his tenure. Okay, so you want to make those connections clear, which will in turn reinforce a sense of family. Okay, so that's the values, these are the needs. Does this make sense to you guys? Okay. All right, good. So, the features of a memo. This is for Dr. Wood's section. Like I said, that bears repeating because the other sections are going to be running a persuasive essay. As I look into the camera.
Because this is going to be shown on all 4 classes they're being taught.
Right.
And we debated what I felt was most useful for you all. We're writing 2 huge essays in the class. All these assignments are useful. But I thought we could hit a business element on top of persuasion.
Yeah, because actually the memo is a lot more common than the white paper would be.
Right, but they're all useful.
They're all very useful and very practical. So.
For everyone watching.
Yes.
Let's focus on my memo.
Okay. All right, so a memo should always begin by indicating the purpose of this communication that you are engaging in, okay? It should address one key topic, right? And I say that one key topic. The key topic is your candidate and all their values, right? If you start talking about, the employee luncheon, then you're really getting off topic there. You want to write short, simple, direct sentences for the most part, okay? Unless you're going to bring in that human element. Use language that's clear and ambiguous. What does ambiguity mean? Anybody know?
Being very vague.
Something that's not clear.
It's vague. When something's vague, it can be interpreted a number of different ways. And you don't want that. You want whatever message you're sending out to be received exactly the way you intended it to. Now, it's not always going to happen all, but you want to try for that, right? Because what happens if you don't?
Your reader will get confused.
Right. And that can lead to miscommunication, right? Which can cause a host of other problems. And trust me, that's one of the biggest elements in any business is communication, okay? And miscommunication. You're going to see it happen across the board. Okay? Learning how to navigate that, really, really important skill.
For when you just said the write short, simple, direct sentences, unless trying to hit the human element, or you mean just invoking emotion, then you can extend, make them longer sentences?
Yeah, because the human element, we're storytelling creatures.
Right.
And whenever you read longer stories, whenever you read poetry, whenever somebody tells you and talks to you, and they give you a story of something they went through, it's kind of like this fluid movement, right? Through one idea or one element of the plot to the next. So that's the reason why it's like a narrative form to have longer sentences, because it simulates the human experience in everyday communication.
So are you saying should we try and avoid that? Because that says write short, simple, direct.
You don't want to have long sentences, really long, complex sentences in every single part of your essay.
Okay,
You
so
want to
maybe
be
just,
strategic when you do that.
Okay.
Okay, do you know the difference between a simple sentence and a complex sentence or a compound sentence?
Sure, if you showed me examples, I could tell you one is one and the other is the other, but I can't describe it to you.
A simple sentence would be something like, I want to hire this candidate for their leadership skills, right? When you compound sentence is when you say, I want to hire this candidate for their leadership skills, which is an important value or important need that we have in our company. That last part is it's compound sentences when you have multiple clauses working together, independent or dependently. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But you can write short, simple, direct sentences using compound sentences. But let me just backtrack for a second just to show you this right here. Oops. Ah. So this thesis statement right here, that's definitely a much more complex compound sentence, right? Which, and it's important because a thesis statement is representing the entire piece, right? Okay, so it would be, it's necessary to have something complex like this, right? But throughout the rest of your essay, you want to try to make these a little shorter, keep them like 2 lines, right? Does that make sense? And then you can alternate to some degree depending on what the genre you're writing in.
So you're saying just use those to try and like invoke emotion and like really try and.
Well, there's different reasons why you would use compound, more complex sentences. That would be a couple of the reasons. Okay. But yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Use language that is clear. Now we already said that. Create a courteous tone. You're not gonna be like, "Yo, we need to hire this candidate," right? That was a joke, guys. Wake up. Okay. And then you want to use the imperative form in your verb choices, okay? This is the difference between we should hire, right? This is kind of just taking this command, right? You want to do it gently, right? You want to do it kindly, right? But you don't want to be like passive about it. You want to be like, our company is hiring, it's memos are meant to be action oriented, okay? And so you want to craft your language in a way that gets that action to happen, okay? And then conclude with an instruction on what action should be taken in response to the memo. Make sense? Okay. All right, last thing that I want to go over with you guys that really will, if you can practice with the skill, it will really help you be a lot more persuasive in your writing. Okay. One of the things that happens a lot with writers is they overwrite. They use 20 words to convey a message that could have been more concisely, more powerfully expressed in 7 words, right? How do you do that? Word choice, okay? Very, very important. So this is a straightforward, logical strategy for getting at how you can create meaning in your reader's mind using short, concise sentences, okay? Powerful word choices. You can say a lot more with a lot less. And in fact, you're going to be a lot more persuasive if you can do that, okay? Because the more that your reader or your audience has to hear or read, the longer your sentences are, the more they have to read to arrive at the meaning that you want them to have, you increase their chances of confusion. You increase their chances of not understanding what you're conveying, okay? So how do we get to this short and to the point? There is a method called the paramedic method, okay? And it involves eliminating to-be verbs and prepositions. Okay, what is a to-be verb? You guys know what that is conjugated? Anybody? Huh?
Is that like the ing?
No, that's a G-run. You're like, what is that?
Like should have.
Huh?
Should have.
That's from the verb to have. To be is.
Oh yeah, like this be.
Come on, guys. Am. Are. Was.
Have.
No, have is from to have. Be.
Where?
Been. Being.
Were.
Were. Good. Okay. What are some prepositions? Anybody know what a preposition is?
Like above.
Right.
Like to the
A
side.
preposition is a part of speech that indicates time and space in relation to the subject you're talking about in your sentence. Okay. So it's got to do with time and space. So what are some examples?
Before.
Okay. Before. In. Out. During. I went towards, I went through the woods and over the under, front, back, huh?
After.
Huh?
After.
After. Okay. At, for. Those are all very common ones, right? Okay, so let's talk about this one first. try to eliminate these two things, okay? To be is one of the most fundamental verbs in the English language, and you can't get away from it. You're going to use it. So the goal is not to try to eliminate it altogether, but try to replace it when you can, when it's fitting, when it's appropriate. Oftentimes the verb to be doesn't have a lot of value, doesn't have a lot of punch, doesn't have a lot of impact, okay? So finding verb choices that can replace that to be verb, okay, is going to make the difference in empowering your language and empowering your sentences, okay? And what happens is when you find a verb that you can replace that actually does the work of the multiple words in the sentence, you get rid of these prepositions, okay? And oftentimes what happens is your verb, your action verb that you're looking for to replace is already in the sentence, okay? So let's look at this. She is being reactionary in her mean tone towards the people in her neighborhood. So what are my to-be verbs? Is.
Being.
Being. Okay, right? Now what are my prepositions? In, towards, in. Right? Okay? There's a word that's already in here that's in a different part of speech, but we could turn into a verb that will replace this to-be verb. What is it? Who said it?
Reactionary.
Reactionary. So how would we change that to a verb? She reacts meanly towards the people in her neighborhood. Okay? She reacts meanly towards the people in her neighborhood. Of course, it's implied that she's going to be doing it in her tone, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 words, right? Okay? What's another word for, what's one word that can do the work of these 5? Neighbors, right? So put it all together. She reacts meanly towards her neighbors. We've gone from 14 words to 6 words. See that? Which one's more powerful? The second one. Yeah. Okay? My reader didn't have to read as many words to get to my meaning. And it's more powerful. You're actually painting that visual in their head. Okay? Does this make sense? All right, let's practice a little bit. All right, so let's take a look at this right here. Just a couple, I was going to have you guys do this in groups, but we're going to be running out of time here soon, right? What time is, we started at 10:30.
We start at 10:35, so around 11:35 we have to stop.
Okay, good. All right, so if you look at this original sentence, okay, let's take out fried. I always wanted to edit this sheet. If it says chicken is good, if that's your sentence, what's good about it? What are you referring to in terms of
Taste.
that quality? Is it taste? Or is it,
Should be textured.
huh? Is it taste? Is it nutritional value?
No.
Is that what you're referring to? Right? So you see how that one verb is doesn't give a lot of meaning. It's ambiguous, right? Of course you're going to have sentences around it that's going to contextualize that meaning. But you do want to rely on those sentences for reference and context in relation to uptaking that meaning in this sentence, but you shouldn't have to always do that, okay? And it's, in fact, better if you don't. Chicken tastes good, right? Chicken is good, chicken tastes good. This relies on your reader's sensories, okay? Senses. So, race cars are fast. Race cars what? We don't really, race cars don't really do it. They go fast, right? These are really simple sentences, okay? The girl is pretty. Looks pretty, right? The magician was faking his death. Faked, right? The boys have been bad. What's a word for have been bad in terms of children?
Misbehaved.
Right. The boys misbehaved. Which one's better? The boys misbehaved or the boys have been bad? Misbehaved, right? I'm writing creatively.
A creative writer. No.
I write creatively. So again, oftentimes the verb is already in the sentence. If it's not, you can use a thesaurus or dictionary to find those verbs, right? So we already did this opening one, okay? So let's look at number 2. Susan and Bob were fans of getting on their bikes and riding through the country to town, okay? What are my to-be verbs?
Where?
Were, okay? What are my prepositions?
On.
Of,
Through.
on,
Through.
through, into, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 words in that sentence, right? And that's really, it's not a complex sentence at all. It would be more justifiable to have 19 more words if you're looking at like my thesis statement we just went over, right? But there's a lot of empty language there, right? Okay, you want your language choices to have meaning and have impact, okay? So, what's a verb for we're fans of?
Like.
Liked, enjoyed. What's a word for getting on their bikes? What's a noun?
Biked.
Bike riding, right? Susan and Bob enjoyed bike riding into town. Susan and Bob enjoyed bike riding into town. 7 words from 19. Okay, let's look at this one. What are my to-be verbs? Is, being, right? Okay, now what are my prepositions? Up, into, up, okay? Oftentimes, one way of getting at using the paramedic method, getting rid of those to-be verbs, is simply moving your subject that's doing the action to the front of the sentence, okay? Showing them actively doing the action, okay? So what's my verb that I can extract from this sentence?
The woman picked up the baby into her arms.
Okay? The verb's already here. So you could say picked up or you could say lifted, right? Okay? So how, translate. The woman
Lifted
the baby into her arms. Do we even need into her arms?
Yeah.
What else is she gonna lift it with? Her octopus tentacles? Okay? So these are some examples of ways that you get at using powerful language. So let me show you a couple other things. What's another part that's part and parcel of this whole idea of using powerful action verbs is transferring your sentences that are in passive voice into active voice. So you guys know the difference between those two things. Passive voice is you see the action being done. Active voice is you see the subject doing the action. Okay? The cucumbers had been pickled, right? Bringing in a subject. Okay? She pickled the cucumbers. Love is all you need, is all that is needed in this life. All you need is love, right? The eggs were boiled by the chef. Reverse the order. Chef boiled the eggs, right? But in Washington, the protests were made by the people.
People protested in Washington.
People protested in Washington. Much stronger, right? So, all these examples we're going over are examples of people who have overwritten, right? It takes a lot more time to get to the actual meaning of the message. What you want to try to go in at with this sense in your mind is how can I say more with less, right?
Question.
Question.
The fourth sentence, in Washington, the protests were made by people. Sometimes when you're writing or saying things, maybe saying it in that way, like in Washington, the protests were made by people, it may convey the message of you you emphasizing on that place, the Washington. So if you use it in a way that, the corrective way, you don't put the emphasis on the Washington.
Well, you can say in Washington the people protested. You see what I'm saying? And it still puts the emphasis on the city. However, you bring up a really good point in terms of being strategic in your word choices, because if you say in Washington the protests were made by the people, what it does is that first part of the sentence actually highlights the idea that being in Washington and the centers on the protest. There is a reason why you would use passive voice. I'm not saying never to do this, okay? Passive voice is actually used a lot in scientific writing, okay? And depending on what you want to emphasize in the sentence, what you want to put in your reader's minds first, you might deliberately decide to use passive voice, okay? It's a strategic choice, okay? So those are really good points. But, the general rule of thumb, It's a lot stronger to use action or active voice, using action verbs, painting that image in your reader's mind, making them feel what you want them to feel, right? So, in addition to that, when you guys go to write in a persuasive way, okay, you got to think about it in terms of what sort of language choices can I make that can do the work of many, right? So let's look at this example. How does the Wright brothers invented the airplane do the work of the first sentence? The Wright brothers were the inventors of the airplane. This sentence is got two. It's double-edged here. It's got two meanings. Okay, it's doing the work of both sentences. How? Anybody know? If they invented the airplane, right? By nature, what does that make them? Inventors, right? It's implied, right? So you're not only saying that they were inventors, but they invented this particular item. So you've done the work and you've gotten rid of these other words, and it's stronger, okay? So this is more overriding, okay? So let's look at a few funny examples in which people overwrite. Here's one other strategy. Combining sentences is actually a really strong persuasive approach. So this is like short, choppy. The dog was unhappy. He felt that way because his owners had gone away without filling his food dish, leaving him hungry. The owners of the hungry dog made him unhappy by going away without feeding him. Sentence combined. Okay, that is definitely a good strategy that you can employ as well. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples of how when people overwrite, what effect does that have? Okay, so let's look at number 2. See if you guys can translate. Even after the doomsday of nuclear warfare, when all known signs of life will be swept off by electromagnetic radiations, a tiny familiar animal with twin antella, flagella, and jointed legs, though with faded exoskeleton, will come out from a weary hole in the face of a red-burnt cliff to be the new master of this once Homo sapiens-dominated piece of universe.
What was supposed to do?
Huh?
What it was supposed to do?
Cockroaches survive.
You got it right off, right? Cockroaches survive nuclear war, yes.
But doesn't that like depend on what kind of writing you're doing?
Absolutely. I'm this is hyperbolic, meaning I'm exaggerating this for a point, okay? This would be something you would use in creative literary writing, right? But people actually use this type of writing in genres they don't need to be using them in, okay? Yeah, so, all right, so let's look at this one. My genes have been passed through my cells and into yours, Luke, thereby resulting in my paternal connection to you.
I'm your father. I'm your father.
Luke, I am your father. He's laughing. All right, and this last one. I was really surprised on Wednesday night that one of the students got this right off the bat. Let's see if you guys can do it. Because I've been teaching this method for 4 years, and nobody's ever been able to translate this one. My mother often spoke of gilded receptacles filled with delicious lots of brown maroon nuggets as symbolic for the characteristic process. Huh?
Life's a box of chocolate.
This is George Mason. Where have you been? George Mason loves this stuff.
I didn't even get through half of it. And he's already said
It was the boys who started to bring
okay,
it up for us.
then it was me selling it, huh? All right, good. So I was persuaded you to find the answer through me selling it. Okay, through my rhetorical choices of tone in my voice and talking like a Southerner, right? And I'm from Alabama, so that works. Yeehaw. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
I'm going to go over the format for the memo, and I'm going to go over the details later since it's not applicable to our friends who are watching the video.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you want to do a concluding statement, or are we stopping recording?
Well, in case there's any questions, does anybody have any questions about this? Okay.
The PowerPoint's going to be up on Blackboard, right?
And this, too.
And this video.
We'll have recorded what we said.
Bye, Al.
What do I do? Hit the red button
Yeah.
again? Okay.